Hello world. I'm an unemployed ex-FAANG senior software engineer with 25 plus years of experience in the tech industry. A few nights ago, I was standing in my kitchen at 11:40 p.m., barefoot, reheating cold rice and leftover salmon in the microwave, and my younger son walked in rubbing his eyes. He looked at my laptop on the counter, looked at me and said, "Dad, are you still working on that app thing?" And I laughed, but it wasn't really a laugh. It was that tired little sound you make when you don't want your kid to hear the panic in your chest. On the screen, I had a half-finished landing page, a Stripe test checkout, a database schema, and one of those absurd little dashboards every indie hacker builds to feel like momentum is happening. And just then, I realized I had become one more middle-aged guy in tech, laid off from a prestigious job, trying to build a tiny SaaS life raft out of the same tools everyone else was using, in the same market everyone else was flooding, hoping somehow the math would bend for me. The dishwasher was humming, the house was dark, my son was half asleep, and I had this very cold thought. This thing probably dies in 2026, not because I'm lazy, not because I'm untalented, but because the game itself has changed. And honestly, this hit me hard because I've spent most of my adult life believing software was the cleanest escape hatch. Learn to build, learn to ship, learn to sell subscription revenue, stack enough MRR, and maybe, just maybe, you buy back your freedom. That was the fantasy. That was the pitch. And if you're watching this right now, especially if you're a mid-level engineer, a burned out PM, a designer, an analyst, or some 24-year-old kid trying to claw his way into a stable future, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, okay, maybe the job market is a mess, but I'll build a SaaS on the side. I'll make a little B2B tool, maybe a niche AI wrapper, maybe something for creators, recruiters, dentists, accountants, churches, gyms, realtors, whatever. I'll get to 10 grand a month. I'll escape. I felt exactly the same. This is the part no one says out loud. For a lot of people, the SaaS side hustle wasn't really about software. It was about emotional survival. It was a way to stay sane when your employer treated you like a line item. It was a way to feel some agency while inflation was eating your groceries, housing was becoming cartoonishly unaffordable, and every headline was telling you AI could do your job cheaper and faster. We were all told to learn to code. Then we learned to code, then the market got saturated, the ladder got pulled up, and now the same system is whispering, no, not like that. I have to admit something that's not flattering. In my late 30s and early 40s, when I was still deep inside the machine, I used to secretly judge people who chased little side projects. I thought, why not just focus on your main career? Get promoted, accumulate stock, play the game well. That was my worldview. I was the serious one, the adult, the guy who stayed on the Zoom call, who replied to Slack at midnight, who kept saying, just one more quarter. Then my wife had a health scare. Nothing cinematic, no dramatic TV music, just a real human body saying enough. I remember sitting in a hospital chair with a stale coffee in my hand, answering messages from work while pretending I was present. My son was texting me from home asking if I'd make it back for his school thing the next day. My manager was pinging me about an escalation, and I did what a lot of high performers do. I split myself into fragments and called it responsibility. That's one of my biggest regrets. Not that I worked hard. Hard work is fine. It can even be beautiful. My regret is that I let other people define what counted as important for way too long. I missed dinners. I missed conversations. I was physically in the house, but mentally still inside incident reviews and roadmap politics. I became irritable, thin-skinned, distracted, the worst version of competence. You know what I mean? Efficient at work, emotionally unavailable at home, and over time, without noticing, I started sounding like my own father. Short answers. Practical advice when what my kids wanted was warmth. Annoyance where there should have been patience. This is the part no one says out loud either. Tech doesn't just consume your time. If you're not careful, it colonizes your emotional range. A friend of mine from years back, brilliant back-end engineer, one of those guys who could look at a distributed system and just see the shape of the problem, instantly died in his early 50s. Not some poetic founder myth, just stress, bad habits, ignored symptoms, the slow violence of always postponing your own life. I still think about him. I think about the way people in our industry praise endurance like it's character. I think about how many marriages I watched erode quietly, how many parents turned into ghosts inside their own homes, how many people attach their worth to RSUs and performance ratings and job titles that disappeared the second a macro cycle turned. So when I talk about your SaaS side hustle dying in 2026, I'm not saying it to be edgy. I'm saying it because I know many of you are feeling this right now. You're not crazy for feeling this way. You're looking at layoffs, hiring freezes, offshoring, AI-assisted coding, and a white-collar economy that suddenly feels way less safe than anyone promised. And your instinct is to build something small and yours. That instinct is healthy. The problem is the form it usually takes. Most people are trying to build the 2018 version of freedom in the 2026 version of the market. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The golden age of easy SaaS side hustles was never really about genius product ideas. It was about timing. After the 2008 crisis, central banks pinned rates near zero for years. Capital got cheap. Software multiples got silly. Cloud infrastructure matured. APIs got abundant. Remote work expanded the talent pool, and businesses were trained to subscribe to everything. That environment rewarded software layers, even mediocre ones. You could build a dashboard, connect 3 APIs, make the UI decent, slap on a monthly fee, and if you found a niche with enough pain and not too much competition, you had a shot. Then a whole generation got educated on the same playbook. Twitter threads, indie hacker podcasts, Gumroad dreams, build once, sell forever. The education system pushed everyone toward knowledge work. The culture told young men especially that if they couldn't win socially, romantically, or economically in the physical world, they could at least win online by building products. You can laugh at that, but it matters. A lot of these side hustles aren't just products, they're identity prosthetics. They're a way of saying, I still matter, I still have leverage, I can still shape my future. That's why the disappointment gets so personal. Now, here's the part that shocked me once I sat with it long enough. In 2026, the bottleneck isn't building the software. It's everything after that. Distribution, trust, retention, integration, workflow ownership, legal risk, switching costs, domain access. And because AI has drastically lowered the cost of producing competent software, the market is about to get buried under an avalanche of good enough products. That's why your SaaS side hustle dies. Not because software stops mattering, but because software by itself becomes cheap, fast, and painfully easy to replicate. If you're a developer watching this, you already know how weird this feels. 10 years ago, being able to code meant you had a scarce production skill. In 2026, code is still valuable, but raw code generation is no longer the moat. A decent engineer with AI tools can produce in a weekend what used to take a team weeks. A non-engineer can get frighteningly far. Agencies are spinning up custom internal tools fast. Existing vendors are bundling features. Open source projects are cloning core functionality. The marginal novelty of a simple SaaS app is collapsing. And the market is adjusting faster than people realize. Customers have been trained by software abundance to expect more for less. They're tired of subscriptions. They're exhausted by tool sprawl. Every team already has too many dashboards, too many logins, too many browser tabs, too many single panes of glass. Procurement is tighter. Budgets are tighter. Trust is lower. The institutional trust collapse is real. People don't trust corporations. They don't trust universities. They don't trust government. And increasingly, they don't trust software vendors either, especially new ones, especially solo ones, especially when data is involved. The second thing that really hit me is that most SaaS side hustles are built by the wrong person for the wrong customer at the wrong level of abstraction. That sounds harsh, but hear me out. A lot of engineers build tools for markets they barely understand. They know the technology. They don't know the live pain. So they make a polished little app that sort of helps but doesn't slot into the customer's actual workflow, or they target tiny businesses that churn fast, buy emotionally, and cancel the second the economy twitches. Or they build for other developers, which is fine if you're world-class and early, but terrible if you're late and generic, because developers are the most price-sensitive, tool-hopping, opinionated buyers on earth. And then there's AI. Everybody says AI won't replace engineers, it will amplify them. Fine, there's truth in that. But from a business standpoint, AI absolutely crushes wrapper economics. If your side hustle is basically prompt orchestration, plus a decent UI, plus a workflow layer on top of a foundation model, you need to understand how fragile that is. The model vendor can eat your feature. An open source model can undercut your pricing. A bigger competitor can bundle your use case. A service company can deliver more value with humans in the loop. The customer can rebuild a rough version internally. The moat is thinner than people want to admit. Here's what my son and his friends are really afraid of. They're not just afraid of losing jobs to AI. They're afraid there's no stable ladder at all. They see older millennials and Gen X people who did everything right and still got chopped. They see housing detached from wages. They see dating becoming weird, transactional, and demoralizing for a lot of young men. They see family formation delayed because nobody feels economically secure enough to commit. They see credential inflation, institutional decay, and a culture where every skill seems temporary. So when they hear start a SaaS, what they really hear is maybe there's one path left where I can be self-sufficient. That's why I'm being blunt. I don't want you pouring your best years into a structure that no longer matches the terrain. Let me add some historical context because this didn't happen in a vacuum. The software labor market from roughly 2010 to 2022 was distorted by an extraordinary combination of cheap money, smartphone expansion, cloud adoption, pandemic acceleration, and platform growth. Add global talent flows, H-1B expansion dynamics, remote arbitrage, coding boot camps, and a culture that treated software engineers like high priests, and you got a massive inflow of people chasing the same promise. For a while, that worked. Then rates rose, public multiples compressed, investors demanded efficiency, companies overcorrected from pandemic hiring, and AI arrived right when management teams were already looking for ways to rationalize headcount. The job security myth is dead. Corporate loyalty was a lie. And I say that as somebody who benefited from the old system for a long time. I made good money. I got prestige. I got to work on serious systems with smart people. But the implicit contract was still fake. Deliver value, stay flexible, sacrifice enough, and the institution will eventually protect you? No, it won't. It may reward you for a while. That's different. So who actually wins and who loses in this shift? The losers, bluntly, are people selling isolated software features into crowded markets without owning demand, distribution, data, or implementation. The losers are the people building another note-taking app for lawyers, another AI email assistant, another social media caption generator, another all-in-one dashboard for a niche that already has 12 vendors. The losers are the smart but abstract builders who love product but hate sales, hate customer interviews, hate follow-up, hate support, hate messy reality. The winners are the people who get closer to money and closer to mission-critical workflows. The winners are people who combine software with service, software with proprietary data, software with compliance knowledge, software with distribution, software with community, software with relationships. The winners solve expensive problems where failure hurts, revenue operations, compliance automation tied to actual regulations, migration, integration, industry-specific workflows with human accountability, internal tools sold through trust, systems that plug directly into how a business makes or saves real money. Net. Here's what I believe after 25 years. The era of the clean little passive SaaS fantasy is ending for most people, not all people. There will always be outliers. Somebody watching this will build a niche monster. Good for them. I'm not talking about edge cases. I'm talking about the median person with nights and weekends, a mortgage or rent, family pressure, maybe aging parents, maybe student loans, maybe a fraying nervous system, trying to build a simple micro SaaS in a market where software supply is exploding and customer attention is collapsing. And honestly, there's another layer nobody wants to discuss. A pure SaaS side hustle often flatters the builder's ego more than it serves the customer. It lets you stay in your comfort zone. You get to code. You get to tweak the UI. You get to optimize onboarding copy and debate pricing tiers and feel productive, but you avoid the uncomfortable stuff: calling users, understanding operations, learning an industry, charging enough, making promises, taking responsibility for outcomes. I know this because I've done it. I can lose a full weekend polishing architecture for a product nobody urgently needs. That's not entrepreneurship. That's self-soothing with TypeScript. So what should you build instead? This is where I want to give you something useful, because doom without a path forward is just emotional junk food. If your goal is freedom, resilience, and income in 2026 and beyond, I would seriously consider building what I'd call an outcome business, not a software business. Start from a painful, expensive business problem. Solve it manually first. Use AI and software to improve your margins, speed, and consistency behind the scenes. Charge for the outcome, not the tool. For example, instead of building an AI CRM note summarizer, build a revenue operations service for a specific kind of company where you install, clean, automate, and maintain their sales pipeline, reporting, and follow-up workflows. You can still build internal software. You can still use agents, but the client is paying for improved close rates, cleaner forecasting, less admin overhead. That's sticky. That's harder to replace. Instead of building a SaaS for local clinics to manage patient reminders, build a patient reactivation and no-show reduction service for dental groups or med spas where you own the messaging workflows, reporting, and optimization. Instead of building an AI content tool, build a done-with-you demand generation system for boring B2B companies that hate marketing but need pipeline. Instead of selling access to a generic product, sell transformation with software leverage embedded inside it. If you're earlier in your career, or if you're laid off and cash is tight, here's a practical 30, 60, 90-day plan. In the first 30 days, stop romanticizing product ideas and start collecting painful recurring business problems. Talk to 20 people in one narrow niche. One niche, not small businesses. That's not a niche. HVAC owners with 10 to 50 employees in one state is closer to a niche. Independent wealth advisors under a certain AUM premium level is a niche. Multi-location dental offices is a niche. Learn their workflow, learn what breaks, learn what costs them money, learn what they're already paying for badly. At the same time, do financial triage, cut burn, extend runway. I know that's not sexy, but it matters. Cancel vanity subscriptions. Pause the ego spending. If you've been laid off, protect cash first, identity second. This is the part no one says out loud because everybody wants to feel visionary. Survival is a strategy. Clarity loves runway. In days 31 to 60, pick one painful workflow and offer a manual service around it. Don't build the platform yet. Use spreadsheets, Zapier-style automation, AI assistants, existing SaaS tools, whatever gets the job done. Your goal is proof of value and language acquisition. You need to hear how customers describe the pain in their own words. You need to see where implementation gets messy. You need to discover where trust matters. Charge early, even if it's small. Free users will lie to you with gratitude. Paying users will tell you the truth with their behavior. In days 61 to 90, productize the repetitive part. Only now do you start building software. And even then, build the minimum system that reduces delivery cost or increases reliability. Build internal first, external later. If 3 clients all need the same workflow automation, reporting layer, or data cleaning pipeline, that's the seed of something real. If not, you just saved yourself 6 months of delusion. Skill-wise, I would focus on 5 things. First, AI-assisted workflow design, not just prompt hacking. Learn how real business processes map to tools, humans, approvals, data quality, and failure modes. Second, integration skills, APIs, webhooks, data sync, auth, boring glue. Boring glue is gold. Third, domain literacy in one ugly industry. Pick a place where money moves and software is still annoying. Fourth, sales conversations, not manipulative sales, diagnostic sales. The ability to ask, where does this hurt? What does it cost? Who signs off? Why now? Fifth, audience, a tiny newsletter, a YouTube channel, a niche LinkedIn presence, local relationships, trade communities. Distribution is not optional anymore. If you're a mid-level engineer watching this, I want to say something very directly. Do not build your future around being just technical enough in a world where technical output is getting cheaper. Build your future around judgment, trust, and proximity to revenue. Become the person who can understand ambiguity, translate business pain, design a solution, implement it, and stand behind the outcome. That combination will survive much longer than one more clever app. And if you're younger, if you're in your 20s and you're scared, I get it. I really do. You've inherited a weird economy and a weird culture, but don't let the chaos push you into magical thinking. A side hustle is not a lottery ticket. It's a responsibility. Pick something grounded. Pick something customers already spend money on. Pick something where being dependable is more valuable than being flashy. Quiet competence still compounds even now. I also want to say this to the dads, the moms, the people with people depending on them. Please don't use entrepreneurship as another way to disappear from your own life. I've made that mistake in one form or another for years. Building can become another sanctioned absence. Another reason to say, not tonight, not this weekend, maybe after launch. Be careful. Your kids do not care about your MRR chart. They care whether you were there. That lesson cost me too much to learn. So yeah, I do think a lot of SaaS side hustles will die in 2026. I think the easy ones get commoditized. I think the generic ones get buried. I think the build once, earn forever narrative gets exposed as mostly fantasy for the average person. But I also think this creates a strange opportunity for grounded people, for adults, for builders willing to get closer to reality. If you can combine technical skill with emotional maturity, commercial awareness, and an appetite appetite for messy, real-world problems, you can still build something incredibly durable. It just may not look like the dream you were sold. Honestly, maybe that's okay. Maybe the death of the fantasy is the beginning of an adult strategy. Maybe instead of chasing passive income screenshots and startup cosplay, you build a business that genuinely helps people, pays you well, respects your nervous system, and lets you show up for your family with some actual dignity. That's where my head is these days. Less seduced by elegance, more interested in durability, less interested in looking like a founder, more interested in becoming useful. If you have a morbid curiosity to join me on this life journey, please consider subscribing. I'm going to keep making these videos as honestly as I can. I also write more detailed thoughts on Substack, so if you want the deeper written version of what's rattling around in my head, check that out too. If these videos help you think more clearly and you want to support the channel, there's channel membership, there's a buy me a coffee link, and for those of you who want more direct help, I'm opening up limited one-on-one coaching for career strategy, positioning, and figuring out what to build next without burning your life down in the process. Thanks so much for watching. Talk soon. Bye.